Hello, horror enthusiasts, haunting lovers, and history buffs. Welcome to yet another episode where we have, technical difficulties and mental errors, and we're having a good day. But today, we're going to cover a place steeped in the terrifying events that took place on the sandy shores of this island.
Gullah Gullah Island. Just kidding.
Boop boop. So if
you're
ready,
sorry.
yes, I do. It's fucking stupid.
Okay, sorry.
So if you're ready to dive headfirst into the less favorable aspects of the past, get comfy, settle in. I'm Kate, and joining me as always is Nat, this is Wading into the Void.
I just had a flashback of Sugar Bush, and I got a little sad. Being murdered in, World War II or whatever.
Oh my god. Oh, that sweet little baby.
Y'all, I finally got my chilies, by the way. I said it. This is our second time recording the intro, by the way. Because OBS wasn't connected to my microphone, so I was just a mute, I guess.
As you know by now, it's always a fucking struggle on one of our
It's always
ends.
something wrong with me. I don't know what's going... Well, last time, Katie couldn't hear me at all.
No, I couldn't. So we were like, just hope this works. But, it's fine. We caught it super early. It's better that it's the intro, not the whole episode. So...
yeah, that would have fucking sucked.
Nat has chili. I have iced coffee. And we're gonna chat,
Oh man, I'm so sad the poop joke wasn't in there, but that's okay.
It's okay. We were talking about how, I had coffee, and Nat was like, oh, that's really not a smart decision for you. And I was like, well, ADHD decides to switch it up. So if I have iced coffee, it kind of does the reverse effects. It makes me a little sleepy, so...
And of course I said, oh, I get it. Because when you drink coffee, it makes you have to shit, and the shitting makes you tired. Yeah, that happens to me too. And then she was like, no, I don't have IBS. That's a you problem. And then, yeah. So imagine it was really funny.
Yeah, it was in the moment, but
yeah,
it's okay.
Now it's like, lame.
Now it's just an inside joke, and you're all just out of the loop. But it's fine.
Exactly.
But yeah, hello. How are you? What have you been up to? We were talking before, and it's felt like it's been the fucking ever since we really sat down, just really chatted with one another, connected with all of you, and,
I have a story.
Oh, okay.
To tell before we go into this.
Hop into it right now. Why not?
I was going to tell you, but then I realized my mic was turned off, so I was like, okay, hang on.
We'll wait.
So at work, I have a safe that I keep money in.
Oh, gosh.
And, something happened, and we got locked out of the safe. And we have 2 different combination codes that were given to us.
Uh-huh.
One is from 2008, and one is from before that sometime.
Oh, okay.
And none of the combinations work. The key doesn't work. Nothing works. The door handle to the safe feels really fucked up. So I tried to open it.
Oh, gosh.
My boss tried to open it. I tried to open it again. Someone from maintenance came and tried to open it. Another person from maintenance came and tried to open it. Another person came from maintenance to try to open it. They couldn't open it, and they decided on Monday they're gonna blow it open with a fucking axe.
Oh, shit. Record it.
I know, that's what I said. I was like, I gotta record this shit.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
That's so funny.
That was my day today, was me getting locked out of my safe. Luckily, I had moved most of the important stuff out.
Yep.
But there were a couple things that we were still holding.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever.
I love that you brought up the safe, because literally this week at work, I told my bosses and several of the other department heads that if they were ever looking for an office for me, because I work at a bank, I said, oh yeah, the old safe would be the perfect spot for me.
Yo!
That
would kind of be fun.
Right? They're just using it as
step into
storage
my office.
right now. The door's always shut, and I'm always like joking with them that like I would be so happy to be left alone and never disturbed.
Dude, so same.
And
I
I'm
want
like,
that in my basement.
I literally said, I'm like, yeah, just clear everything out of there, stick my desk in there, and I'd be the happiest girl you'd ever meet.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them looked
Put
at
a
me
bed
like,
in there.
are
Make
you
me a
okay?
prisoner. I'll stay there.
Like, it low-key kind of looks like a jail cell in the back half.
I love it.
Because it has, like, the bars, you know, the iron bars and everything. And I'm like, I wouldn't even be mad. Because, like, I'm not the claustrophobic type. So stick me in there. It'd be quiet. It would be perfect for my ADHD. And I would be so happy. So Nat's trying to blow up a safe, and I'm trying to get into one.
You're trying to fucking live in one.
I'm like,
I just imagine
just put me in.
there's no windows, only one door. There's nothing even remotely fun in there. There's probably no... Is there electric? I don't know. Would you have to put extension cords in there?
There is no windows. I don't even think there's a light. So I'd have to put like a light in there. Probably not
You
electric.
have no form of entertainment. You would put up one of those posters of like the kitten hanging from the tree, like hang in there. Like
Someone
that would be the worst office ever.
They would knock on the door because I'd keep that shit shut. And I'd be like, one moment, or I'd have to have like a knock
They'd
combo
have to
or
like
something because they
reverse
couldn't
the
hear
door.
me.
They'd have to reverse the door. You'd just be locked in there all day.
Oh my gosh, it sounds
my
fantastic. I'm like, this is fantastic. Just me, my computer, a bucket, so I can go to the bathroom. And...
No!
We're good.
Katie has like a prisoner fetish or some shit. My bucket that I get to piss and shit in at work.
I love it. My boss was like, yeah,
my
we can just lock you in
God.
there all day and it'd be fine.
It's so fucked up. Your CEO's like, yes, we should do this to this woman.
Well. Just kidding.
Just kidding.
So, are you ready to, kind of, what I figured we'd do for today's episode is go back to the basics a little. It's been a while since we just talked, horrific hauntings. So, that's what I plan to do. Yes, so we're covering something tragic, terrible, and guaranteed to kind of make your skin crawl a bit. So, let's do it. I'm doing Oracle and Tarot today because, surprise!
Because Nat is a lazy motherfucker.
I don't even blame her, so let's get into it, shall we? For today's Oracle, we are using a Compendium of Witches by Natasha Ilanisic. I believe is how you say it. I believe it's like Swedish or something. There's lots of accents in there.
Ah, yes.
And we got number 10, The Wayfarer. So now I'm going to turn my camera on just for a second so you can see this.
There's gonna be like River Styx or some shit.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's like an old crone. She's got like moons and
She's
shit
way
on her
cooler.
hat. Mushrooms in a bag down there and a stick.
That's me.
It
when I'm
is you in like 50 years.
Swagged out with the mushrooms.
Swagged out. Haley's
Oh,
at home,
yeah.
just, I know she's vibing right now, doing like one of those little dancey dances when we mentioned the mushrooms. She loves mushrooms.
Who?
Haley.
My cousin?
Yeah. You know how much
Sure.
she loves mushrooms.
I don't know.
You're such
Does
a
she?
dork. Yes.
When did she say that?
I think she said it at Paracon. Not like
Oh.
eating shrooms or something, like the cute
Oh,
little
could
decor
be me.
mushrooms. Just so we're clear.
I love mushrooms, bitch!
So, the Wayfarer stands for curiosity, open-mindedness, hospitality, and movement. And it says, she pulls her weathered boots on. Each callus has its own place in them. Another day of journeying awaits. New places
Sorry.
to discover, new people to meet, and all of them brimming with stories. The Wayfarer represents our curiosity and desire to learn. She reminds us that opening ourselves to new ideas and rejecting prejudice are fundamental to the learning process. She recognizes arrogance as a hindrance and welcomes humbleness as a precious gift. Okay. About the witch. Ermafaro de Lugo, also known as Reynard, spent her life journeying through medieval Europe. Sometimes she did so with traveling groups and often under the guise of a pilgrim. Her thirst for knowledge took her far and wide and gifted her with friends from all ways of life. Because one thing about this oracle, the Compendium of Witches, it is quite literally a compendium of historical witches. So for each card, you get a representation of who the person actually was in real life. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I really like that. I've seen it before and I've always wanted to buy it, but I've just never gotten it.
It was my Paracon purchase.
Oh, maybe that's where I first saw it.
So thank you to our friends at Haunted Emporium.
Oh, yeah.
Because I love that oracle card.
That's where I got the Darkwood Tarot, too.
Yes. And our beautiful White Sage Smudge Spray, which enjoy ASMR. I just sprayed some. So the tarot for the day is the Wanderer's Tarot by Casey Zabala. And this one's a little different. It's an all-black tarot deck, which I love, and centers around moonstones, feathers, and knives. So that's really fun.
Ooh.
Really fresh. And the card we got today was Stones 8. And now I'm going to turn the camera on again for you here.
Ooh.
Very pretty. Kind of looks a little bit like a 4-leaf clover a little bit. Or like maybe a cross.
Like there's a card in the Wild Unknown Tarot that looks really similar to that. It's a Pentacles card. I don't know if it's the 8 of Pentacles or what. But maybe. They look very similar.
But I love the simplicity of it, and it's just so minimalistic but gorgeous at the same time. And I love that the cards are very much to your own interpretation. They don't have written out descriptions or anything. You're kind of left to your own devices. It gives you the suit and then the basic meaning of what the number goes to. So, for Stones 8, stones represent what is harvested and sown in the earth associated with economy and material wealth. And 8 represents meditation and reflection. So I'm getting the idea to, especially during the holidays, kind of reflect on your spending, kind of be mindful of your means, and don't go out of your wealth a little bit there. Don't try and push yourself because of your ego, you know? Something along the lines of that.
On the meditation aspect, take this time to be with your family.
Yes, that's a very good point as well. And oddly enough, that we got that card tonight, before we started recording this, I just opened up a new book to kind of help me along with my own psychic and medium abilities called The Psychic Witch by Matt Orion. So it's a metaphysical guide to meditation, magic, and manifestation. So I thought that was a very interesting callback to that as well. Maybe it's telling me, damn bitch, it's about time, but I don't know.
I started a book yesterday, too. It's called Doves and Demons.
Cute, we love it.
It's a steampunk monster romance. A Y choose as well, so that means there's multiple.
Oh my god.
That you don't have to choose between.
I love it.
Look it up. It's actually pretty good. I'm like halfway through. I read half of it last night. It was kind of insane.
I've read a couple of books so far this month. I just started doing buddy reads with my friend Lindsay. So Lindsay, if you're listening to this, shout out to you. We're doing a couple holiday specific buddy reads right now, and they're pretty funny. So definitely not monster fucker books, but
they're
we'll
like
get there.
Hallmark books, or
no, definitely not. They are inspired by Hallmark movies, but they're kind of like a play on how cheesy they are, and they're very smut infested. So it's fun. It's a fun time.
I don't know if I'd enjoy that.
That's why I did not invite you. Lindsay is very much a dark romance reader, so Haunting Adeline.
I love dark romance. Yeah, I love
that stuff.
Haunting
That's
Adeline.
her jam. But in honor of the holidays, we decided to kind of cool it a little bit, and then in the new year, we'll see where we go. But, yeah. Are you ready to go into it today?
Now I want to read my book. Let's go.
Sorry. In today's episode, we're going to be covering a pretty famous island in comparison to, let's say, its counterpart. That its history dates back to 421 AD. So,
work, bitch.
I guess you could say we're going international.
Oh shit!
I can't help myself.
Oh shit!
I'm covering a small island between the coasts of Venice and Lido. Lido, I'm not quite sure how to say it.
Oh! I know.
You know?
Wait, hey. Sorry, continue. You just say it. Just say it.
The island is north of Venice and is located in the Venetian lagoon. And although the island may seem small and serene from a distance, the closer you get, the more you become shrouded in darkness, despair, and overall uneasiness. So, the earliest record we have of Poveglia Island is in the early days of the Roman Empire, when it was acting as a refuge for those seeking respite from the conflict in Puada and Este. People remained here on and off for years, and they sought out asylum. However, in 1379, so we have a decent jump there between 420 whatever AD and 1379, when Genoa was attacked by Poveglia and Venice, when Genoa attacked both Poveglia and Venice, the inhabitants fled to the island, and it remained abandoned after that until 1527, when the bubonic plague began to sweep through Italy.
Did they just throw the bubonic plague victims there?
How did you know? So
I think I've heard of this. So yeah, okay.
Yes. So
let's get into it.
A lot of people have heard just basically that one phrase that Venice and Italy kind of just like fucking chucked the plague victims onto this island, but they didn't really hear much more about it. So
that's so awful.
I said we were getting into it today, okay? So you're gonna hear just how bad and fucked up it was. So
I'm ready.
During the first outbreak of the plague in the 14th century, the citizens of Venice were searching for a way to minimize their losses. On such a small island, the plague could quickly wipe out the entire population. So their solution was to use the now abandoned island of Poveglia as a sort of quarantine zone. Which, on the outside, seems like a fairly smart idea. However, in practice, the execution of this plan was cruel and, to put it bluntly, very callous.
Yeah, that's really fucked up. It's like Australia on steroids.
Yeah, because Australia originated as more of like a prison.
Yeah.
For England. This was basically just like, you're dying.
Just sick and dying people. Chuck them.
Goodbye. And
oh my god.
Just for
They're
reference,
probably not gentle either.
You'll learn how gentle they were.
Oh, okay.
For reference, the size of this island is roughly 17 acres. So it is not large at all. People in the United States own more than 17 acres of their own property. Just to put it in perspective.
Wow.
Yeah, so, let's get into it, shall we? Countless plague victims were forcibly brought to the island. Yes, you heard that right, forcibly. Those that had passed from the plague and those who were showing symptoms or suffering were often carted across the sea in a single vessel by plague doctors, where they were basically dropped on the island and left to their own devices.
So, like, the extent of the symptoms that they were just chucking people on the boat for.
They could have had a runny nose.
Yeah.
And they were like, no.
That makes sense.
You're done.
Oh my god.
Fuck off. Get on the boat. Meanwhile, you have this bird-looking motherfucker with herbs shoved in their beak, like, staring at you, you know? The whole way from Venice to Poveglia. So...
I mean, that's so fucked up because, like, what if you weren't even sick and then them putting you on the boat, that's what gets you sick with bubonic plague? That's so fucked up.
And that was most likely the case for a decent amount of people. So those that arrived to Poveglia that were, you know, deceased were thrown in mass burial pits and either set aflame or covered with dirt, effectively decimating their remains and wiping their memory from the earth.
Oh my god. This place has gotta be so fucking haunted.
Yeah. So, there was no log of who was brought to the island either, and what their names were, or the estimated time of their death. So all of these people have just been lost to history. And you'll learn just how many people this was throughout the time of the different plagues. A little bit further down.
How can they even get estimates?
Just the, I believe it was the population, because they were doing, census at the time. So they took the ones before the bubonic plague and then after and kind of compared them a little bit. But, like, there was no official records of, like, who these people were.
Yeah, that's so sad.
As for those that were still, you know, breathing when they reached Poveglia, they were literally just left on the island to fend for themselves for a series of days. Without, I believe, any food or water or supplies.
Oh my God.
And I read a couple of different places, heard a couple different things, but I believe people were mentioning 40 days a lot. So they would be left there for 40 days, and then if they somehow managed to survive the plague and find food and shelter on the island, they would then be taken back to Venice, but if they died, they would simply be added to the mass cremation piles with the rest of the dead.
What the fuck? What the fuck?
There has to have been at least one motherfucker that survived, based for someone to know that.
I'd start killing the people if they landed their ship. I'd start fucking murdering them for leaving me.
This is my island now, bitch. Like,
yeah, I'd become that guy. What's his name? Alex. I don't remember his name.
Oh,
the guy that he got kicked off of his ship. It's like Pirate Times.
Oh, I know.
And he got abandoned like in the 1700s. And he lived there for 4 fucking years.
Yeah.
And he made, like, this huge base and domesticated goats and cats and, like, that would be me. I'd be so pissed. Yeah.
You know what? Fine. I'll make the best of it.
Yeah.
Literally turns to, like, one of those, quote-unquote, uncivilized by modern-day standards tribes in Africa that, like, try and kill anything that comes near it. But, you know, they seem like they're doing fine these days, so whatever.
Yeah.
It's said that the ground or the earth or, you know, the soil on this island is made up of 50% natural soil and 50% remains of the island's victims. So, you know, ashes, bones, depending on whether they were cremated or if they were just buried. And it is said, and here's the number for you, Nat, that at least 160,000 people were taken to Poveglia Island and put into mass graves throughout the time that various plagues swept throughout Europe and eventually Italy.
Holy fuck, what was the population of Italy?
I mean, it was decent, but you have to remember that they had several bubonic plagues sweeping through as well. So it's not just at one time where all of these people were taken. It was over a series of different years. So if I just do some quick maths here, 1 second, that is roughly, for your information, 9,412 dead people per mile on Poveglia.
My God!
Yeah. So, that's fucked, isn't it?
That's like... Hang on.
Yeah.
I have to think about this more.
Mm-hmm.
Because... Imagine this is someone's backyard.
Yeah.
17 acres is a big piece of property, but people own property that big.
Yep.
And imagine your backyard, your property, being completely filled under the ground with people just laying on top of each other, bones on top of each other.
Yeah.
That is so fucked
You live
up.
somewhere
it's
with
like walking on a
cornfields?
battleground. What?
I said you live somewhere with cornfields. Imagine just like 2 of those cornfields just stacked with people. That's essentially
so
what it
disturbing.
is. So, yeah. Like we said, it's really fucked up. And it only gets better. A century later, when these mass graves were discovered, researchers found something that made them scratch their heads, but then after looking into the history books, they were left even more appalled than when they made their initial discovery.
Oh, great.
In many of these graves, they found large rocks stuffed between the jaws of a series of skulls. You're probably thinking, what the actual fuck? But the reasoning they found in the history books was simple. Vampires.
What? How is that simple?
So each time they had a new victim to bury, one of these mass graves were essentially like reopened, they dug them back up. And on occasion, some of the corpses, the graves that had been buried instead of cremated, they would find that several of the corpses would have blood dripping from their mouths. And the plague doctors and people at the time assumed these people were actually vampires feasting on the other plague victims.
What?
Uh-huh. When in reality, and they didn't have the science at the time to know this, so vampires. In reality, it was actually part of the decomposition process, so the gases bursting within the corpses caused by internal organ failure were causing the blood from those rupturing organs to leak out through the mouths of the victims. Yeah. So I'm sorry for the mental picture, but it's a huge part of the history of this island that needed to be shared, that hundreds of people's skulls were just found with humongous rocks shoved between their jaws. Because they didn't want them to eat others.
Yeah, that's to stop them from eating. But if they were fucking vampires, wouldn't they just rip that shit out of their mouths and keep eating?
I don't think they thought that far ahead.
Like, what was the thought process? I'm so confused.
I'm gonna
If it's a vampire that lives eternally, that is alive, why do you think they'd just be like, oh, this rock stays here forever! I'm a vampire! Blah, blah, blah! What?
I'm just gonna go ahead and say that there wasn't much thought process involved at all. That they were basically just trying to get in and out of the island as fast as they could.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's so fucked up.
This is really fucked up.
For the longest time, and in the current day, the people who frequent the waters between Venice and Poveglia Island avoid Poveglia at all costs. According to them, and circling back to the point I made before of the remains of the plague victims making up, half the grounds of the island, when the skies are clear, you can actually see bones and skulls under the surface of the water in the more shallow depths.
God. Yeah.
And there are plenty of instances where various bones and skulls have been caught in local fishermen's nets. And it's considered an omen to keep anything from those catches. So the entire net worth of fish harvest is released back into the water, and the fishermen search for another location. It is so... Wow. This island still freaks the people of Venice out and the surrounding areas so much that they don't even fuck with it. They're
honestly,
like, no.
It's understandable, though, because that's such a messed up history.
Yeah.
And all those uncharted people that are probably still, like, haunting the area because they never got any type of closure for their deaths or anything. Like...
And they never will.
Yeah. That's
it's
so
awful.
sad.
As if that isn't terrible enough, it gets, debatably worse as time progresses. Because, you see, the people of Venice and essentially Poveglia did decide to try and give a second life to this island. And in the 20th century, Poveglia became home to a psychiatric hospital where disturbing and vile, quote-unquote, medical experiments were conducted on those suffering from mental illness. So let's throw an insane asylum into the mix as well on this island that has already seen 160,000 deaths.
You know what? Let me make a point about this. Because I feel like this is the case for a lot of very haunted locations. You have, like... I guess, I don't know if Penhurst is like this, but other places like, what's the one in Kentucky? I don't know. But, like, they start out as, like, a home for children or something like that. Yep. And then once a war happens, they're, like, a hospital for the wounded veterans. And then it's a tuberculosis hospital for all these people who are dying from this horrible illness. And then it's a sane asylum. And it's like...
They just keep building on the terrible, terrible things. And
it's just along the lines of, who are these marginalized minority people that nobody cares about, that we can find some place to put them to basically keep them out of the way?
Yeah. No, that's
and that's exactly
what
you're doing here. It's messed up.
Yeah, and you'll get to hear a little bit about it. There isn't too much information on the asylum, strictly because it did not last long, which we will get into why. And it just adds a whole nother layer onto the horrific and terrible nature of this 17-acre island. So are you ready to talk about the Poveglia Mental Hospital?
Yeah, let's just do it.
This new era for Poveglia began in 1922 when the new residents came to live on the island in the newly constructed hospital. It was no secret, at least after a time, that the director and doctor on this island was a terrible, terrible man who enjoyed performing horrific medical experiments on the patients, including, pause for dramatic effect, the ice pick lobotomy that was so famous at this time. If you
Yeah. I don't know.
If you combine the immense torture at the hands of the doctor and the overwhelming feeling of horror and dread just basically buried into the very soil of this island.
Quite literally.
The patients literally had no chance at a peaceful life. Like, no chance. And they were already suffering in different ways to begin with. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was terrible.
So fucked up.
However, in a twist of fate, the director of the hospital eventually lost his own mind while on Poveglia and threw himself from the top of the clock tower of the main facility.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So it's actually rumored that the ghosts of the patients he victimized and the previous plague victims drove him mad. After all their untimely deaths, there was just these spirits and energies just like surrounding him 24/7, and it just caused him to just lose it and just throw himself off the building. Kind
of well deserved, though.
I'm not gonna argue it. I just didn't be the one to say it.
Yeah. If he's the one that is torturing all these poor people who can't really defend themselves, then who's gonna say he didn't deserve that?
Oh man, that's so sad.
Yeah. I mean, it's fucked up still.
Yeah, like, you definitely...
He did it to himself!
Yes.
That's what it all comes down to.
To this day, the facility still stands on the island, barely though, as it's pretty rapidly decaying from the salty air from the sea surrounding it, and just like the massive overgrowth on the island. It is important to note that since the halls of the hospital closed in 1968, no one has lived on the island. Currently, Poveglia actually has its own government. I believe it's based out of Venice, or some of the other surrounding islands kind of just govern over, like, the rules for this place. So they set rules and regulations. And Poveglia is actually closed to the public. But tourists are consistently seeking to get access to the island. If people want to step foot on the island, they need to literally apply to do so, and the process can take years to get a yes or a no.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's actually illegal to visit Poveglia without a permit.
Which makes sense, because nobody lives there. It's an abandoned island, and there's just dead bodies everywhere. Like, it's bordering on hazard land. Like, hazardous land.
Definitely so. And there's actually police, like, on boats that, kind of like the Army National Guard or different parts of the Navy here in the United States, that
Coast
are,
Guard.
strictly dedicated just to, like, watching Poveglia and making sure that no one trespasses. And if you're caught, it can mean time in jail and a hefty fine. But if you want to see pictures of Poveglia, or even a ghost hunt or two, you can find videos on YouTube of people that have broken onto the island. Or if you want something, I won't say from an authenticated source, the word I'll use is entertaining. Ghost Adventures was given permission to investigate the island several years ago, so you could go and find their episode.
LMAO.
Just Zach Baggins torturing the already tortured souls of Poveglia. It's fine.
Golly.
Yeah. With that in mind, who wants to get into the possible haunts taking place at Poveglia?
I do.
Yeah. So just note that since this place is closed off to the public, we aren't going to have like a Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum or Penhurst Asylum where you're getting all of these different reports because people can still investigate today. So the numbers are a little lower. The stories don't go super in depth, but we do have a couple.
Okay.
And I just want to throw it out there, since we've talked about how, like, the energy surrounding this place is so awful, that the locals in Venice and other, like, neighboring islands and lands actually refer to Poveglia as Ghost Island. And with an expected 160,000, I feel like we need to reiterate that, souls...
On 17 acres.
Yeah, on 17 acres.
It's insane.
About 9,000 dead people per acre. The souls being cruelly laid to rest in such a compact area, it comes as no surprise that Poveglia Island is a very active place. So, no, people cannot step foot on it, but fishermen that have a need to sail by the island on a routine basis report hearing screams and moans from within the island.
Oh.
And, yeah, like, they have to get fairly close for fishing purposes. So they're close enough to hear these screams. And they can even say that the bell in the bell tower can be heard chiming at odd hours. And
how is it still working?
That's the thing.
How
in
is
and
it
of
still
itself,
working?
the bell was removed years ago.
What?
The bell is not there.
Yeah, this place is so haunted. I feel like if you step foot on the island, it is like, no, bad. No,
Yeah,
bad,
it's
bad,
not
bad.
good. One of the more well-known spirits of Poveglia is the spirit of a young girl who they nicknamed Little Maria. which is kind of cute, little Maria.
That's cute.
Maria is a spirit that has been seen for over 400 years, which is impressive, so go Maria.
Wow.
But sadly, she roams the island by herself. It's believed that she was one of the many victims of the bubonic plague and that she's very confused. So people often hear and see her crying, just like on the shores of Poveglia. So that's really sad.
This has been going on for 400 years. That's so sad.
It's really sad. I feel very bad for Maria. I really hope one of these days she does find her rest, but... Some other named spirits on the island include a couple from the times when Poveglia served as a psychiatric hospital. The first being a young man named Pietro. Pietro was a man who actually had 2 amputated legs and used to enjoy racing his wheelchairs through the walls of the hospital, like through the halls. Those who have been permitted, in the past God knows how many years, to visit the island have reported hearing the wheels of Pietro's wheelchair racing up and down the hallways. So I'm happy he's making the most of it,
Yeah. He's just having fun.
Yeah. And I'm like, maybe if it's possible, could he give little Maria, like, a ride on the wheelchair? Like, to cheer her up,
That's what I was thinking!
But there is another spirit whose name is Federico, and he doesn't do as much. He's reported to just maniacally grin and laugh pretty much the entire day. So it's safe to say...
with a name like Federico.
Yeah.
That, I called that. Totally did.
Yeah. So I'm like, it would be awesome if,
just kidding.
Pietro could, give Maria a ride on the wheelchair, but then I'm like, also at the same time, you don't know what spirits from the hospital are there that could also scare her. So I guess we have to pick our wishes, but I think it's probably safe to say that Federico is probably one of the patients who suffered under the hands of the director of the hospital.
But also, Pietro is still zooming around with no issues, then obviously this person's Federico's not, like, really malicious. He's just, like, fucked up.
He might just be a little scary, but if he had, like, a bunch of torture done to him and an untimely death forced upon him, like, I can't blame him. So just let him vibe, I guess. The other well-known spirit on Poveglia is a young woman, and although she doesn't have a name, the horrific expression on her face has left many mental scars to the people who have seen her. People assume that she's actually scared of the previously mentioned director, who went mad and is now trying to escape him as well in the afterlife. And many people assume that he still resides on the island as well and terrorizes the remaining spirits. So, fuck that guy, I guess. Many of the people who make frequent treks near the island for work or pleasure, because after all, the people of Venice and tourists live and go to this area for the beautiful water. So people are going to be out there, they're going to be zooming around on their little boats. They're not just going to avoid this at all costs. Most of the time, especially tourists, because they might not have any idea. But people report seeing a pair of huge eyes below the surface of the water. And others claim to see numerous faces peering back at them from behind the broken windows of the mental hospital. The feeling of being watched.
I'm stuck on this huge eyes.
I don't believe they're like 2-foot tall eyes. I think they're just like, if you get close enough in the shallow waters, you see kind of like a large number of eyes, probably from the deceased, like there's skulls and bones and everything floating in the shallow depths. I wonder if it's kind of that. There might be also like this, most of these are probably written in Italian and then translated when I'm doing my research, so there might be a little bit of a language barrier on some of them.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind.
Okay.
The feeling of being watched and followed, whether you're walking around the island or cruising around it by boat, is incredibly common. And people feel overwhelmed with emotions of dread and sorrow the moment they step foot on the island's soil. If you're one of the brave people willing to explore Poveglia or the asylum on the island, and given permission, there are a few entrances you can use to get inside. However, and Nat, this is going to terrify you.
Oh, great.
The easiest way to access the hospital is by entering through one of the cremators.
Oh, I don't like that. No.
No, I didn't think you would.
That's disturbing. I feel like
It's
that's
fucked.
disturbing for most people.
Yeah, no,
But
thank you.
that's so scary. What if you're crawling through the cremator or whatever, and all of a sudden, somehow, power's on or whatever powered it, it gets hot in there.
Jesus.
Like, you're crawling. It's
That's
like,
terrible.
that's horrifying. That's literal horror nightmare fuel.
I would rather walk several miles to find another entrance rather than
Yeah.
do that. Just saying.
I'd rather fucking scale the wall of the building.
I would rather risk climbing over the crumbling wall than crawl through the cremator. Once inside the hospital, people report seeing shadows on the walls following them. And no, they're not their own shadows, just to be clear. Displaced voices, murmurs, and screams are heard. And people often get scratched or pushed. The main point is that no one who has ever stepped foot on Poveglia has left without feeling the effects of the island. Those who are trying to find eternal rest on the island do not appreciate being made a spectacle of or disturbed. And all in all, with the sheer amount of tragedy taking place on this one island over the span of centuries, it's no wonder that it's shrouded in mystery and dread. I wouldn't even be surprised if it was some sort of portal.
Yeah, that would make sense.
I mean, you can't go to one place that's this small and contained and have that much death and torture and sorrow and have it not be like some playing ground for something.
Yeah, for sure.
And one final note before we wrap this up is there was actually an attempt to auction Poveglia Island off in 2014.
And you know what? That's another point that I want to make is property works so weirdly in foreign countries.
Yeah.
Because in most cases, at least in the US, that is considered a historical land site and would be owned by the government.
Yeah.
But when I went to Mexico, we went to the Chachubian Mayan ruins, and it's privately owned.
Yeah.
It's so interesting.
But that in and of itself puts it in perspective that Italy tried to fucking auction it off. They do not want this island anymore.
Yeah, that's
They're
also
like,
true.
take
What do
it.
you think's gonna happen to it?
Well, the deal ended up falling through. And
Yeah, whoever was trying to purchase it probably stepped foot on the land, puked.
it was like,
and then-
fuck this. No.
Yeah.
Since then, it has been practically impossible to get access to the island, and many consider it to be completely off limit to visitors. They've basically just, like, quarantined this island like no one's allowed on it anymore. So, who knew? Just past Venice, where one of the most beautiful and cultural blossoming places on the earth, there's an island of such horror.
Yeah.
That's what I have, guys. I mean, I hoped you enjoyed the history, kind of going back into, like, what we originally started the podcast to do was just
Yes, it
talk
reminds
creepy
me of
shit, you know?
Trans-Allegheny.
Yeah.
Like, we're right back at square one.
So, I hope you liked it, and give us some feedback on it if you would really enjoy having more of these going forward. And we definitely enjoy doing the new stuff that we've been doing, for sure. They're super fun. But
it's always nice to have those historical haunts.
Yeah.
Places like that.
Because it's not just history, right? Like, how I'm spinning it, it's a fucking story. You're, like, along for the ride, and then you get, like, the outcome at the end, and it's just, I find it very interesting. So, yeah.
It's very thought-provoking, too.
It does. It really makes you think.
Yeah, it's just so crazy. The amount of people that were on that tiny island just to fend for themselves.
Yeah.
And then maybe have a chance of being brought back to society, or, like, being buried or set on fire. And then even after the fact you've already died and are going through decaying, like...
Yeah.
They just assume that there's something wrong with you, like you're a vampire, and they're, like, desecrating your body after they've already gave you a horrible burial in a very unjust situation. Yeah. It's so disturbing.
It just reminds you how historically terrible humans are.
Well, I think, I think it reminds us of historical ignorance.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
I think that's really what it comes down to, is just not having proper scientific information. And also it comes down to the fact of having, like, the other, them, they, it's like those people who are sick, or those people who we want to get rid of. And it's like... Yeah.
No, that's a good point.
It's just, it happens globally, and it's happened all throughout history, and still happens.
Oh, definitely.
And it's so crazy.
Yeah, and if you really need this broken down to put into your perspective, I'm going to assume a good portion of our listeners live in small towns, right? So just imagine every single person in your small town shoved on the property of one mall.
Yeah.
That's how many people were buried on Poveglia Island.
And... yeah, it's just so crazy. No forms of food. Like, what were they eating?
Each other.
That's another question I
don't
have.
know.
Yeah. That was one of the first questions I had was, what were they eating? Because on such a small piece of land, there's probably not much of an ecosystem.
I mean, there was probably no animals to domesticate. Like, you brought up that one guy who had fucking goats and shit. Like, there was maybe a bird, like a seagull or something, but...
yeah.
Like,
well, 17 acres, there's probably, like, birds, and you have fish in the ocean.
You do, but you have no way to catch them.
Exactly. So my thought is, they're probably eating... They were probably either starving... or they're eating people who are already dead, or people who died.
Yeah. That's my guess. Or they were eating poisonous fucking something they shouldn't off the land, and... yeah. Honestly, the people had no chance, so...
And it's not like we'd ever know what they were actually doing, because they have no records of anything.
Yeah. I kind of get it, like, a little bit, right? Like, they were overwhelmed with the fucking bubonic plague, but, like, at the same time, like, goddamn. Brace something down.
It's just interesting, because at that time, history is really important, and they're not thinking about how they're going to be history at some point, Yeah. And they're not writing stuff down or charting these people that you're bringing because of bubonic plague. It ruins everything. Yeah. There's no cure. It is very quickly contagious. It's just, it's such a crazy thing that just spread across the world, and because of rats. Yeah. And... yeah,
I suppose that we should be thankful, considering we all just lived through a plague of some sort the last couple of years.
Yeah, basically.
That literally fucking swept through Italy, if I need to remind us, that they didn't repeat history. So at least they've learned from.
But you know what?
Their
I
past.
think that just goes back to that ignorance.
Yeah.
People are still ignorant now, of course, but I think we have a lot more people advocating for human rights, and I don't see that happening again, hopefully.
I really fucking hope so. I mean, there's a lot of shit going on in the world right now, but...
And I'm sure there are probably a lot of people who wanted to just throw the sick people on a fucking island.
Oh, for sure.
The amount of people who would fucking wage war because of it is probably astounding.
Yes.
Because you can't just do that.
So I think that's where we'll end it today.
Yeah.
And yeah, I really enjoyed doing this one. Although the content can be hard covering a lot of these types of stories, I think it's important to go over them, and Nat and I try and lighten it up where we can with a couple snide remarks and crude jokes, but yeah.
But when it kind of comes down to it, I feel like a lot of what we talk about is history.
Yeah.
In some way, shape, or form. That's kind of what we're always talking about, whether it be myths, urban legends, lore, things that actually happened, or, whatever we talk about. Like, it's all relating to history and what humans have created in some way, shape, or form.
Plot twist, I tricked Natalie into starting a history podcast.
Well, if it was actually a history podcast, Dylan would listen.
The shade.
I'm joking. He actually did listen to...
Good job. Oh, hold on.
Katie really thinks she's doing something, but neither of our computers are actually recording.
Damn!
The Discord sounds!
I put in a golf clap for people here. Yeah, but thanks everyone for tuning in. If you want more Wading Into the Void content, you can find us on social media, searching at Wading Into the Void, and we'll pop on up on Facebook and Instagram. And that's it. And don't ask me for any more.
We've tried, okay? We've tried. They just don't work. We don't like them.
But
we're boomers! Just kidding.
We are two lowly girls who have full-time jobs, in degrees, have fucking other shit to do.
I haven't even been on my own social medias, okay?
We're done. We're over.
I'm done.
Where's our intern? Just kidding. Unpaid internship. Who wants it?
Dangling it above your head. Who wants it?
Good work experience. No, but if you're interested in supporting our show, you can find us on Patreon by searching Wading Into the Void. We have a couple different tiers. But on that pitch, have a great rest of your week, everyone. We'll catch you in a couple, and stay spooky.
And look out for some of our special end of the year shit coming out soon.
Oh, yes. Good point. Bye, everyone.
That's it.